So welcome back to episode 3 of our mini podcast series. Last time we covered Mallorca, which has now been and gone, and Katie, you raced it. So do you want to give us a quick recap? How was Mallorca?
It was amazing, thank you. It was definitely slightly different conditions than what we spoke about on the podcast. We got a very windy Mallorca day, which made for a pretty tough k block headwind on the way back into T2, but it did mean that the run was not too hot. So yeah, we had a bit of all weathers. We had a little bit of rain on the run, and then we actually did finish with some blue skies, which was very nice. And we had about 25 of the Total Tri crew there, so it was a really good race and just good to share the course with so many of our athletes.
And I think best laid plans and all of that we'd done the podcast and then they changed the run course, didn't they?
They did, yeah, they did. Always keep us guessing.
So today we're going to move on to Bolton. So just going to introduce our guest today is Chris Recchia, who is not only a very good age group athlete for the Total Tri team, but is also husband to Fran Recchia, who is one of our Total Tri coaches. He has raced the Bolton course a total of 5 times, twice over the long full distance and 3 times over the 70.3. My memory I've got nothing to add to Bolton because I've never raced it, but my memory of seeing Bolton t-shirts is actually my mum made Chris and Fran a blanket out of all of their old race t-shirts, and I remember receiving this box of t-shirts, and between the pair of them, every other t-shirt I was pulling out of this box was another Bolton, another Bolton, another Bolton. So I'm going to open with a question. Why Bolton? Why do you keep going back?
Why Bolton? Bolton was my first date with Ironman, if you like, and it's the first time that I saw or came into contact with Ironman. It's the first time I saw Fran do an Ironman, and I saw her finish in Bolton. I then did my first 70.3 in Bolton during COVID, actually, when they ran a kind of ad hoc race, the 70.3. And then I did the full twice after that. And then, as you said, Kirsty, I did the 70.3 the last couple of years as well, when they turned it into the 70.3 and moved away from it being a full Ironman. So I've got lots of fond memories with Bolton. It's where I met my coach, TC. Look, the people there are just amazing. The race is amazing. And whilst it's a northern kind of town, not particularly flash, actually when Ironman comes to town, the people come out onto the streets, and the support in the town centre, on Chorley New Road, at Penny Flash is just amazing. So you get the real sense of Ironman and the spirit of Ironman and the community of Ironman at Bolton. So that's why I love it.
I actually have my very own memory of sharing the Ironman course with Chris back in 2023, I think it was, when we were both racing the full distance, and I think I'd set off a little bit ahead of you in the swim, but I knew it was only a matter of time until you came past me. And I remember on the run course going past each other on every lap until you glided past me. But it was just so nice to share the course together. And you're so right that I don't think there's a course that is spectated as well as Bolton, with just people you know from across the Northwest. And it really is a pretty big spectacle. So it's, like you say, even though maybe not as magnificent as Mallorca course-wise, it's definitely got its own things that make it special for sure. And I think before we go into talking about the race, probably the best place to start with Bolton is the logistics of it, because it is slightly different to other courses in the aspect of transition and how it's all set up. So are you happy to kind of talk us through what sort of race weekend looks like, Chris, with registration and things?
Yeah, for sure. There's a few races out there, aren't there, that many people have done where you get the split transition, and it can be a bit of a faff. And Bolton is, as you say, a split transition, but it's not too bad if you are organised and you give yourself time. And it's actually okay once everything's been dropped off, as it were. It's split transition. So we've got T1 in Pennington Flash, where the swim start is, and then T2 in Queen's Park in the centre of Bolton. And what I've always done is I've always tried to get over there the day before the day on the Friday of the weekend, if you like. So you can register on the Friday and get all your stuff from the centre of Bolton, where registration is in the town hall. and get all of your gear together on the night of the Friday, so that come Saturday, maybe with a little bit of help from friends, you can actually drive into the centre of Bolton and drop your T2 bag off in Queen's Park. Literally pull up at the side of the road, walk in with your bag, drop it off, and then with your bike, drive to Pennington Flash, which is I think it's about 4.5 miles away, Katie, something like that, maybe a bit more. But drive to Pennington Flash on the Saturday morning so that you can then drop your bike and your bike bag as well at T1 Pennington Flash. Like I say, if you're organised and you've kind of planned the night before, then it's not too bad. And I'd recommend that people get that part done early in the day. And what normally happens on the Saturday is that as a team, people will do that kind of first bag drop at Queen's Park. They'll drive over to Pennington Flash, drop their bike and their bike bag, and then people generally congregate in and around the swim start for a coffee on that kind of Saturday lunchtime-ish, obviously weather dependent. Now, you might want to drop your bike a bit later if it's super hot. I'm sure we'll talk about the weather in a moment. It could be anything. But normally around lunchtime, get that bike dropped off so that you can drive back to your accommodation, wherever that is, and just settle for the afternoon and be ready for race morning.
Perfect, thank you. So this race morning, let's talk about the swim. So is it self-seeded? What advice have you got on starting the swim? Also the logistics of the swim course itself. What's unique about the Bolton swim?
Well, I'd first say I'm not sure I'm the guy to ask about swimming, but it's okay actually. Penny Flash, as you can see on the screen, is for Bolton a 1 lap anti-clockwise loop. And I think the things to register here are self-seeding. For those strong swimmers, seed properly and seed in the right pen, and put yourself in the right position for the start. Obviously, as many of us know, people will maybe overseed themselves and sometimes put themselves in the faster groups and then realise that they're in the wrong place. Be honest about your seeding and put yourself in the right position to seed. It's a conventional Ironman start these days, so it's not kind of all in as we've seen in other races, Kirsty. It's a controlled 3-4 person entry into Pennington Flash, and then you're away. In the swim itself, get in and settle in as quick as you can. It's a straight stretch out to the first buoy, left turn, back into the finish. Couple of nuances with Bolton that I've observed in the past is that one, it can be pan flat, but it can also get quite choppy depending on the wind. And if the wind is coming onto the shore, it typically feels choppy. You'll see straight away on the morning, but because it's an early start, I think it's a 6 o'clock, 6:30 start again. Ordinarily, it's not too bad, but be prepared for it to be a little bit choppy if the conditions are so. I think the other thing to be aware of is sometimes it can get pretty weedy in Pennington Flash. There can be quite a lot of weeds, and certainly maybe 50, 100 meters out. I always remember a weed area, and it's like you're swimming, and then all of a sudden you've got weeds hanging off your arms. So don't get freaked out.
He's selling it, isn't he?
Don't get freaked out by that. Just swim through it, and then it kind of opens up again, and it's like actually it's not too bad. The vision in the water is okay actually, and swim in a straight line, and because you've only got 2 buoys to turn on, so if you're going off course, you're going to go off course kind of a long way because you're sighting to that main first left turn buoy. So swim straight, and don't expect that the person in front of you whose feet you might be on is swimming in a straight line. But again, not something I worry about too much because I tend not to get on people's feet too well. So, but all in all, it's always felt like a good swim actually. It being 1 lap only 2 turns means it can be quite quick. And if the conditions are favourable, definitely strong swimmers get up front, would be my advice.
Yeah, I've definitely swam some of my fastest swim times at Bolton when you get a good day there. I mean, I have had all weathers in that lake, but when you get a good day there, I agree that it can be quite a fast course. I would definitely say, from being someone who does try to go slightly nearer the front of the swim, from experience, just try and, like Chris has said, make sure you get there early, but try and get in the swim pen early, because it is quite hard. At some races, you can kind of slot into different pens, whereas at Bolton, it's almost like one big queue. So it can be quite hard to then get nearer the front if you want to get in, say, the 30 or 35-minute wave, and you're ending up getting to the start at like 5:45, because it gets really, really busy. So just make sure you're getting to the start pens nice and early. I remember one year being in a toilet queue as they were doing Thunderstruck, thinking this is not good. So just give yourself as much time as you can in the morning, as with all races, and just give yourself enough time to set yourself up for a good swim.
Perfect. Thanks, guys. There's some great tips on the swim there. So last time we were talking about Mallorca being one of the biggest transitions we have ever seen. Let's talk about T1 in Bolton. What does it look like?
So the first thing to say, Kirsty, is that when you exit the swim, you're going to be carpeted with carpet up to T1. So if you're there on the Saturday and you look and you think, it's all gravelly and hard underfoot, it should all be carpeted, and it normally is all carpeted out to up to T1. So you exit the swim. I'm going to say no more than 100 meters, 150 meters from the swim exit, past the little cafe, up to T1 in the fenced area. It's a grassed T1, but they've normally have the tents and everything for cover and what have you. So normally bags are inside the tent with the benches, so that you're getting changed and ready for the bike in the tent. So it's up out the swim, on the carpet, following the railings, into T1, into the tent, find the bag and get ready, changed, out of the tent to your racking position and onto the bike. It's actually very compressed, and your T1 transition time, you should be trying to go quick. You should be trying to get in and out pretty fast. And if it's not freezing cold and you've got good dexterity and your hands are working, then it should be pretty quick. And I'd be aiming to be quick through and into transition and out of transition, pretty rapid actually.
Yeah, it's definitely a faster transition than Mallorca, that's for sure. And we have spoke about this on a couple of the other podcasts, in particular talking about outlaw and racing in the UK. We could have any weather. It could be a really hot day, it could be a rainy day. Is there any advice you'd give on what people should have in their T1 bags? Is that kind of a decision to make the day before? Because that can slow you down a little bit.
Well, firstly, I would most certainly make the decision the day before, because you don't want to be making decisions on the day in T1, whether you put sleeves on or whether you put a jacket on or not. So make the decisions for that on the Saturday would be my advice, and then just roll with it. Last week or a couple of weeks ago when we raced Outlaw, obviously it was very cold on the morning, and the water temperature was cold, the air temperature was cold, and I personally just had my tri-suit. I had no arms, I had no jackets, nothing. It was just my tri-suit. And actually, by the time you'd kind of got out the swim, through transition and onto the bike, you warm up pretty quickly anyway. Let's not forget, it is June, so you should be okay 10-15 minutes into the bike. And if you have to put a bit of an effort in on the bike just to get warmed up a bit, then so be it. I think putting extra layers on might make you comfortable for the first 10 minutes, but 20 minutes into it, Bolton bike course is going to warm you up pretty quickly. So I would start cold and warm up.
I couldn't agree more. I had definitely a couple of guys at Outlaw that I I said to them, almost ignore the race plan. Normally, as a coach, the first thing you say is settle into the bike. But when you know that you need to warm up, actually just put a bit more welly on the pedals for the first 10 minutes just to get the blood flowing, get yourself warm, and then settle in is a really good bit of advice on a cold morning.
The only caveat to that, maybe, because we're going to move on to the Bolton bike course, is of the 56 miles of the Bolton bike course, that first section out of Pennington Flash is maybe one of the most talked about. It is a bit bumpy, isn't it, Chris? So have you got any advice for people on that first section?
Yeah, if you're starting cold and you're going to do the whole warm-up thing on the bike for the first 10 minutes, don't do it in the first 5 minutes, because you need to get out of Pennington Flash onto the main road. The thing I'd say there is that Bolton being Bolton, if it's a lovely sunny morning, it might still be a damp road for a start. And so leaving Pennington Flash, you've got overhanging trees, a little bit of a kind of wooded drive, if you like, it out of Pennington Flash. You've got speed bumps, probably a couple of potholes somewhere along the way. Get on your bike and just get out of Pennington Flash onto the main road safely. So be careful on the first half mile. And then you get out of Pennington Flash, and I think you turn right, don't you, Katie, onto the main road. And then you're onto the kind of grippy stuff. So you're right, don't do the warm-up in the first 2 minutes.
And just considering things like not getting in the TT bars, making sure that your bottles are secure, and just, I guess, settling in there, all things aside with trying to warm up. If it's a cold morning, hopefully it won't be. But am I right in saying once you've got that Pennington Flash bit out of the way, you can almost split the Bolton bike course into two halves? So you've got the Lee section and the Bolton section. Can you talk us through what the different aspects of the course, or those two different loops, look like?
Can I just say on the getting out of Pennington Flash as well, Kirsty, make sure your computer's kind of started on the morning when you kind of when you putting your nutrition on and stuff like that. So you're not faffing with your computer going out of Pennington Flash, because there are speed bumps and potholes, as I say, and it can be slippy. That's the worst thing you could probably be doing, because you're probably not concentrating on the road or who's around you. So do that before, so it auto starts and you're not faffing with your computer. Yeah, once you're out, you're onto the first of the two loops at the bottom of the course that you can see on the map. And it's pretty flat, and you're going to be able to get out of Pennington Flash, get onto the loop, and really settle into the bike quite quickly. As you say, you do the first 2 laps of the overall Bolton course, which are called it's like the Lee Loop or the Lee Hindley Loop or something like that. But you go round that twice before you start heading north. That's quite good, actually, because A, you'll settle into the bike, and B, you'll start picking people off on those couple of loops. So it's almost kind of a self-regulating couple of loops for those for the cyclists, and the field starts to settle down, if you like, on those first 2 loops, which is a good thing. And for those stronger bikers, you can start to work your way through the field on those bottom 2 loops. And if you're just settling into the bike, then it's a great time to do it. You've then kind of got the middle section of the course, which is where you kind of go up the balloon thread, if you like, to the second 2 loops, which is the Horwich Bolton loops. And then you take a left, don't you, Katie? First off, you go left to Horwich, and then you come all the way back into Bolton, and then you go round the Bolton town centre, and then back west along the route to the first out and back, which is a fast out and back kind of motorway section, if you like. Not very long, but very quick. And then you go back up onto the main part of the course and back out to Horwich and what have you. You do that part twice. There is a second out and back that goes north off the main kind of part of the course, up what is considered the main climb on the bike course. It's nothing mega severe. You go north for probably 2 or 3 miles, and then you come back down onto the main course. When you're going up the hill, up the climb, like all climbs in kind of Ironman, I'd settle in and be steady. And if people go racing past you, let them go racing past you. Race your pace up the climb. Race what you're comfortable with, knowing that you've got to do your run afterwards. And head up the climb. Coming down the climb can be really, really quick, but just be careful of that coming down from that climb, because it is quick. And then it's left back into Bolton again, and you kind of joining the run route almost. Well, it is the run route, and you're racing back into Bolton again. That is a really fast section, TT bars all the way if you're on a TT bike, and you should be blasting back into Bolton safely. You're on the left-hand side of the road. It is bollarded off, and you're in one channel of traffic, which is fine, but it can get quite tight. Just be careful where you position your bike, and if you get the chance, maybe drive up there on the Friday or the Saturday just to have a quick look of it, a quick look at it. But all in all, those two sections are really good, and they're really quick, and the out and backs are no major issues. Going around Bolton town centre, just be safe. Obviously there's a lot of people and a lot of crowds, but you're still carrying some speed around Bolton itself, but enjoy that part because it's mega. It's really, really cool, and there's, like I say, lots of people there and lots of people shouting. It's first time that you'll see family and friends in Bolton town centre, and it's probably the first time you'll get that kind of Ironman kind of feeling, and you'll feel like you're properly racing at that point, and people shouting for you and everything else, because it's, as we talked about, it's well supported. What you will find is that there won't be any drafting, because the hills that are there break it up, because it's rolling. And it's a really, I love it. It's a little, it's a challenge. But it can be fast as well.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's a course, if you can ride it smarter, it's definitely a course where you can carry speed well, if you just manage to put a little bit more effort on some of the sections that aren't quite as steep. But in particular, that section that's coming up from Lee up to Bolton is a false flat. You can sometimes be on there and thinking, why am I moving so slow on this flat road? But it's actually a little bit of a climb. So if you're feeling good and feeling like you can work a little bit more up there and just gain a bit of speed back, because then, as Chris has said, a lot of the out and backs are fast, and if you're confident descending and you can get nice and aero, then you'll get that time back. So it definitely is a course where, if you can ride a little bit smarter, and if you are riding to power, kind of have power targets for each section, then you'll definitely move a bit quicker. And the climb isn't too steep, is it? I think it's around 8%, and it's only about 1.5 miles, so yeah, it's not like a big Mallorca climb.
I would recommend, if you get the opportunity, to drive the kind of main components of the course, just so you visualize what it looks like. So maybe drive one loop of the first 2 loops on the southern part coming out of Pennington Flash. Drive that, so it's only 10 miles. You get a good look at it, so you know what you're doing twice. As you said, Katie, drive that the string going up to the second 2 loops on the course, and maybe just drive the top part of the course just once, so that you can see the out and back, see the climb, and just see the extremities of where you're going to and from. I'd always encourage people, if you get a spare hour as you're arriving, maybe have a drive around the course just to take a look at the key points.
Good tip. Thank you, Chris. So with all kind of honest bike courses, if we've been pushing decent power and really riding that bike quite hard, you want to be getting into a super easy gear, picking up the cadence and just spinning out the legs before you come into T2, making sure you're flushing everything out ready for the run, thinking about getting in any last minute nutrition, just topping up your hydration and things. We're off the bike. We come into T2, and this is the only bit I've got memory of from actually spectating the full, is the famous park with the famous hill on the run. So I'm keen to unpick this because it looks like a bit of a beast. Let's talk through the run course, Chris. What can we say about that?
So I'd break it into 3 parts. The run course, you're going to arrive into Queen's Park. Obviously, it's quite a congested area. There's obviously athletes coming in and out. There's a lot of people. when you're coming into transition, make sure you're coming in at the right. You know where the dismount area is, and you're doing it safely, because there are a lot of people around that particular area. Just emphasize that point a little bit, and definitely stick to the rules and understand the Ironman rules as it relates to dismount and what have you. You're going to run from the dismount area straight into T2. You're going to go, it's a grassed area again in Queen's Park. You're going to rack your bike. You're going to go into the tent. You're going to find your bag. You're going to get your trainers on, and you're going to get running onto what I would call the first part of the course, which is on the right-hand side of the course. It's where you're running through the Bolton town centre. And I always feel as though I always get a bit lost. You obviously don't get lost. You follow the signs and marshals and everything else, but you're kind of running around the streets area of Bolton for the first part. But you should use that to get into as quick a running rhythm as you can, and as you're used to, because after that, the course is going to bring you back into what I would call the second part of the run course, which is Queen's Park itself, which is, as you say, Kirsty, the hillier part of the course, where there are aid stations and there's lots of people, but it's the hilly part where you are going to run up through Queen's Park. The hills are your friends when it comes to Bolton, because whilst you are running uphill, actually the variation is really, really good, because it means that you've run that first section around the town centre, and then all of a sudden you're just up into Queen's Park, and you're using a whole different set of muscles to get up and through Queen's Park. I actually really like that variation, and it doesn't necessarily have to slow you down overall. It is going to slow you down as you go through the park, because you're going up some elevation up onto the Chorley New Road, but use it as a positive rather than a negative, and go, well, I'm actually engaging a different set of muscles, and I am just getting some variation, which is really good. Before you then move on to what I would call the third part of the course, which is the Chorley New Road, where going out, you are going up a slight incline, not mega incline, but you're going up a slight incline before you hit the turnaround point and start running back down back down the Chorley New Road into Queen's Park, where you will naturally gather more pace. So it's a really variable course in that it's kind of almost fragmented in that first part where you're running around the streets. You then got the elevation in Queen's Park, and then you've got the steady state up Chorley New Road with a fast back down Chorley New Road before you come back down through Queen's Park and then around the town centre again. So those three sections you'll do twice before you then make your way to the finish line. Just on the hills in Queen's Park, for those that some people might walk up them, which is absolutely fine, or you might take shorter steps and continue to jog, but not at pace. Whatever suits your kind of race plan and how you're feeling should dictate how you grapple with that kind of middle section in Queen's Park. But what I would say is, as soon as you're out of it, get running again and get on back up to speed on that Chorley New Road, because it's a straight road, really, really well supported along there on the run course, like all the way up, certainly on the 70.3, because you're not going as far out. Yeah, really, really enjoy it and soak up the atmosphere, both on Chorley New Road, Queen's Park, and of course in Bolton town centre, where you'll pass the finish once on your first loop before going out on your second loop and coming back to do the finish. Again, a bit like the bike course, Kirsty, really honest running course. It's got everything in it. It's not just a flat course. It's got some flat, it's got some down, it's got some good kind of tests in Queen's Park, and it's a good running test, actually. And again, for those strong runners that have trained hard, it will pay dividend. It'll pay back to you.
I like that, and I really like the fact that we are promoting not to be scared to walk. Actually, for those people that do need to walk, just to ignore everybody else around you. You do you. like you say, reduce your stride, get up the hill in whatever way is most efficient for you, let the heart rate drop, take on some nutrition, and then it pays dividends for the rest of the run. There is absolutely no point overstriding, trying to chase that person next to you up the hill, spiking, burning a match, and your heart rate is just like through the roof, and then having to try and recover, because especially on a lapped course like that, where it is an honest rolling course, that bites you in the bum later on rather than helps you for the sake of beasting the hill a little bit quicker in the early days.
I think it's also a really good course to actually practice a little bit of running to feel as well, and a little bit of pace control, because like Chris said, Chorley New Road is about 5k out, 5k back, and the 5k out is gradually uphill. So if, for example, you're aiming to run, say, 5-minute kilometre just as a nice round number, if you're running up there and you might be sitting at 5:10 and it feels like the sort of effort that you should be running at, then that's kind of where you should settle in, and knowing that then when you turn around and it's slightly downhill, that actually you'll get that pace back, and you will probably find you're able to run at more 4:40 on the back straight because it's slightly downhill. So it's a really good course to get used to how just running slightly different gradients feel, and being able to check in and assess your pace and adjust it at different parts of a course, rather than just going into it saying, I want to hold 5 minutes per kilometre all the way round, when in reality we all know racing isn't as simple as that. I wish it was, but I think this is a great course to really practice that, feel the effort, and as we've said about the hill, just see how you feel after the hill and just do your best. And there's a big aid station right at the top of the hill in Queen's Park, so you can get some water, get some nutrition if you need it before you head out on Chorley New Road. And I would second, the support is amazing. Amazing. It's like a wall of noise on that road.
And how awesome to have a 5k downhill
At the
to
end.
the finish.
Yeah.
So we were at the finish. Just talk about that. What's it like, the atmosphere? I mean, like you say, nobody really goes on holiday to Bolton, but you're selling it to us as a race that when Ironman come to town, they bring with it the vibes. So what's the finish line like in Bolton?
I think the finish line, as I said at the beginning of the podcast, Kirsty, I mean, for me, it's a very, always an emotional one, actually, because it's kind of where it all started for me, and certainly for Fran as well. The finish line is set adjacent to the town hall and the steps on the town hall. And for those that know Bolton, it's actually quite a grand Victorian town hall with really big steps. That becomes a bit of an amphitheatre with literally thousands of people, hundreds of people at least, looking and watching the finish line. So it becomes really, really atmospheric, and you get that feeling, and it's a really special feeling there for whatever reason. And so all of the support that you've had on the course seems to transcend to the finish line, where you'll get a really, really amazing moment. And typically you've got the compares, the Ironman compares. It's always the A-listers, if you like, doing it, where it's Joe Murphy or someone like that. They're always there. Bolton's a really key one for them. So you'll get called across the line by someone who really knows what they're doing, which makes a big difference as well.
And just make sure you don't run over the finish line like this, pressing your Garmin. Keep your head up, embrace the photographer, especially if it's your first one. I just always think you never get the finish line of your first 70.3 or Ironman event back. So just embrace it all, take it all in. If you see your spectators down the finisher's chute, stop to give them a hug, give them a high five. It's only a second of your time. And yeah, I agree. The amphitheatre feeling of Bolton is pretty special.
Definitely got a finish line photo like this stopping my watch in the album. You live and learn, don't you?
I always think when you come in to the finish line, if you give the crowd a bit of a clap, just as you kind of stepping onto the red carpet, just a little bit of a clap to the crowd, you always get a kind of uplifted kind of moment, because people just recognize that you've recognized them, and you've said thank you to all of the supporters that many of you don't even know, but you've said thank you to them for their support through the day, which tends to give you bit more of a, it kind of gives you a bit more of a cheer, which is always just a nice little bit of gratitude back to the crowd, to say thank you. And you can pretend
That's lovely. I like that.
that you're, I don't know, Wayne Rooney or someone like that when they've scored a goal, kind of thing.
So before we close with we have the same final question for everybody that comes on. A last thing from me is, we've established obviously it can be quite a quick bike course, so TT bike setup absolutely fine with some quick sections to be in the bars. Carbon shoes fine, no kind of twisty turny bits that are unstable for the ankles. Like, is there anything from all of that that you would say the demands of the course you need to change or tweak any equipment, or is it full race gear and off we go?
Full race gear, and then send it.
And if you had to give people one takeaway from today's podcast that people should remember for this course, what would it be other than send it?
It would be, Katie, control the controllables, control what's within your control, and deal with anything that comes your way, should it come your way. But don't worry about things that you can't control. Weather, road surfaces, just deal with them and keep everything under control. You know, when you're in the swim, I think Grant said it on a podcast earlier on, maybe a week or so ago, open water swimming, you're in control. So maintain control in the swim. When you're on the bike, control the bike, ride safely, think about those people around you, make sensible decisions, be smooth, even on a slightly more gnarly course, but be smooth. And then on the run, again, control your pace, use the variability and enjoy it fundamentally. I think this is a course that gives you something back at every stage. So remember that, and then of course enjoy the finish moment.
You've made me sad. I'm not racing it this year, but I
I
will be
know.
there spectating. Me, Chris, and loads of the TTT gang will be there. I think this is one of our biggest team events of the year, so there will be pink and blue everywhere you look, and we'll be there cheering you all on if you're racing. So massive good luck.
Yeah, just to take a moment to say thank you very much to Chris for joining us. Lots of awesome top tips there from obviously a lot of experience out on that course. So good luck to everybody racing. Trust the training, and in the words of Mr. Recchia, control the controllables and enjoy the day.
We'll
Good
see you
luck.
next week.